In the Tournament of Power, audiences were introduced to a multitude of fighters from across the multiverse. While they were largely composed of new alien species, among them were two members of a race that was first introduced all the way back in the original Dragon Ball. Those fighters were Saonel and Pirina, the Universe 6 Namekians who had combined with other warriors from their world in an attempt to save it from erasure. Yet despite their extreme measures, they were still defeated. But what if those two Namekians merged together during the tournament? How powerful would they become, and what difference would it make? Well, in this video, we're going to discuss that. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out. Okay guys, so joining me in this video is someone you've seen on my channel in the past, and his name is...
Hey guys, what's up? It's Josh from Dragon Ball Nation here.
Alright Josh, so as I said in the intro, what we're going to be discussing is what if Saonel and Pirina, the two Universe 6 Namekians, merged together during the Tournament of Power? And how would that change things? So we're going to break this down into categories. Number one would be how strong were they when they were first in the tournament, like individually. Number two is how powerful could they become if they merged together? And number three is how big of a difference would this make in the long term and in terms of, say, Universe 6 possibly winning the tournament? So let's begin, of course, with the first one of how strong these characters were in the tournament itself. So Josh, just based upon your own particular estimates and seeing their performances against Gohan and Piccolo, how powerful do you believe that these Universe 6 Namekians were?
Well, it's not any surprise that these Namekians were quite powerful. I mean, they put up a pretty good fight against Gohan and Piccolo, who obviously still came out victorious in the fight. But even against Gohan, I mean, he was struggling a bit against these guys. I mean, it was, from what I can remember, at least all the warrior Namekians fused together into these guys, and their combined power. I mean, I don't want to bring up Dragon Ball Multiverse, but remember, if anyone's ever read that, how strong Gas Korloff was, although that is totally fan fiction and all that stuff. But, you know, these guys really use a similar principle to Gas Korloff in that manga. I don't know if they fused with everyone or not, but if it was just with the warriors, they got such a power boost. And, you know, if they're putting up such a good fight against Gohan, I mean, remember how much stronger Gohan was in the Tournament of Power, right? And it took the combined power of Gohan and Piccolo to beat those two. So, I mean, they're pretty comparable to Gohan and Piccolo. It wasn't like there was that big of a power gap, I suppose, between all four of them. Obviously, Piccolo wasn't as strong as Gohan, in my opinion.
But yes, like you said, the Universe 6 Namekians merged with most of their people on their planet as a part of the greater good, because they wanted to defend their universe at all costs against erasure, which makes perfect sense, but I feel like they must have been pretty strong on their own before this merging process even happened, because while the merging does have a decent multiplier, which we'll discuss soon, the fact of the matter is that they were still comparable in some ways to Gohan, who, as we saw during his fight in the build-up to the Tournament of Power, was actually trading blows with Super Saiyan Blue Goku. And Gohan, you know, maybe he wasn't going 100% full power when he was fighting them, but the fact of the matter is Gohan fired a Kamehameha, and they were able to basically go through his blast to try and attack him, which is when Piccolo finished them off with his Makanko Suppose. So if they could tank a blast and go through it from Gohan, that means that these characters would possibly be equivalent to like Super Saiyan levels of Goku, like Super Saiyan 3, maybe Super Saiyan God. I mean, it sounds kind of ridiculous to say, but hey, when you fuse thousands of Namekians potentially together, then it makes sense, you know, multiplying on top of multiplying on top of multiplying to where they could stand a chance. I mean, Piccolo's power, on the other hand, is way more like up and down during this arc, because, you know, we see him beating Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, and then we see him charging up a full power attack for like a while and hitting Goku in his base form with it, and Goku being like, oh, I barely withstood that. So, you know, it's weird. And then we see him fighting against Saonel and Pirina, so it's like, how strong is Piccolo actually? You know, I guess you could maybe say what he did to Goku was kind of like either him holding back, which didn't really seem like it, or him, you know, just being like an outlier or whatever, because the Tournament of Power scaling is hardly the best, which I know that Josh will agree with me on. I think it's safe to say that these characters are at least upper Super Saiyan levels of Goku in terms of their power, just based upon their performance against Gohan, and you can even highball them to in the neighborhood of like Super Saiyan Blue, which is a lot to say the least. So with that being said, let's get into the fusion process itself. So of course, when these two characters merged with everyone else, they kept themselves separate in order to fill the quota of the 10 fighters for Team Universe 6. But realistically, when you think about it, why didn't they actually get together and say, okay, our universe is definitely gonna lose at this point unless we just combine our powers once again, multiply it significantly, and defeat these people who are putting up such a fight against us. I mean, they would be once again surrendering their individuality, but at the same time, like all the other Namekians did in their universe, it would still be for the greater good, and it would still be in an effort to make sure their universe wasn't deleted. So in terms of the Namekian fusion, Josh, what kind of boosts could you possibly see these two getting, and what kind of evidence from past Dragon Ball could you use to support that idea?
I couldn't think of a core number like a multiplication formula or anything like that, especially since we don't have anything like that in the Daizenshuu, I don't think, or any of those sources. But like what we've seen with our own universe in Dragon Ball Universe 7, where Goku and his friends are from, you could look at Piccolo, obviously, with fusing with Nail. I mean, he got a monstrous power buff from that. I mean, he probably shot up from, I hate to use power levels here, and maybe there's a number for Piccolo when he came to Namek after he was brought back to life. Piccolo was probably over 100k, I'm sure, right? I mean, there's probably a line in there that I'm not thinking of right now that kind of says how strong he was. I mean, he could have definitely, most certainly taken care of probably most of the Ginyu Force, and maybe even Captain Ginyu.
Yeah, Nail did say after he had already fought Frieza and he was sensing the power that was on display between the other fighters at the time, that Piccolo is a really powerful warrior. So that's open for interpretation, but it does seem like he got a giant boost on King Kai's planet, even though it was only like 6 days.
Right. What I do know is that Piccolo wasn't anywhere near first form Frieza, obviously, because Nail was saying that he'd never have a chance against Frieza, and obviously the only form that Nail had ever seen from Frieza was his first form, and you gotta think he didn't even feel anywhere near his full power even in his first form. So Piccolo was probably somewhere in like the 150k range, maybe for his power level, as opposed to Frieza's 530,000. But after fusing, obviously we know that Piccolo decimates second form Frieza, who has a power level of around 1 million, over 1 million. So Piccolo's probably like 1.5, I think making him 50% stronger than Frieza would be a fair assessment. So it's just tough though. It's like, when they fuse with these Namekians, do the weaker ones give anywhere near the same multiplier? Like, I don't know what the math would be. Someone's probably done it, even though the writers and Toriyama have never thought of this math in their head, I'm sure. But, I mean, he's getting like a 10 times multiplier from Nail, pretty much. And then from Kame, I'm not even going to think of that. He got a massive one from Kame. That's a little bit different because that was just him remerging, to his true self. So I would assume that would be a much different multiplier.
Yeah, and I could see that being, I guess, more of regaining his power, because Guru did say on Namek that if he had been in his original form, then only a Super Saiyan could have beaten him, and he would have been able to defeat Frieza, which is something that Nail also expounds upon. And I doubt that they were talking about like first form Frieza. They probably meant Frieza at full power, especially considering that once Piccolo does once again reunite with Kami, he's actually more powerful than the Super Saiyans. So I think it was more like adding Piccolo's current power at the time, which was almost Super Saiyan, to the original power he had with Kami, as opposed to like a strict multiplier.
Yeah, I guess I could see that as well. I could agree with that. But, just looking at those two instances, you can kind of guess how strong Namekian fusion really can be. But I would feel like it would definitely depend on each Namekian for sure. But it's not something to be joked around about. It's a pretty powerful form of fusion.
So with that being said, I think that we can make a kind of rough determination of where their power might be after they increase in power. For me, they would definitely surpass Gohan and Piccolo since they were already kind of competitive with them as it was, and they would probably be more powerful than Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta. But Josh, do you think that they'd be more powerful than, say, Kaioken times 20 Goku? Or do you think that they'd be comparable even to, like, you know, Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta, to Kefla, to Topo? Or do you think that they would still fall short of these characters, and obviously Jiren?
I mean, I would think their next closest competitor would probably be Kefla, honestly. I mean, there's no way that I would see them being as strong as Jiren or, you know, Ultra Instinct Goku or Evolution Blue Vegeta. I think that'd be a little ridiculous, but you know what? That would be up to the writers, I guess, wouldn't it? But I just don't necessarily see the evidence to put them quite that high.
Yeah, because realistically, you know, we do have two Super Saiyans, with one of them being a strong rage form with Kale, and they were both fighting against Goku, who was more powerful than he was at the beginning of the tournament after he had already used Ultra Instinct and unlocked more of his hidden power. So even if we said that they were like a couple times stronger than each of those individual parts, Kefla would still have Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2, and as we saw with her Super Saiyan 2, she was unleashing more and more of her power just like Goku was, to where she was actually able to rival and potentially be able to kill Ultra Instinct Ohm and Goku during their fight. So I find it hard to believe that they'd be that powerful, but even if we say they are, even if we like were to highball them, I feel like ultimately once Goku uses Ultra Instinct, especially if he were to use his mastered Ultra Instinct, and once Jiren went 100%, they and their fused body would not necessarily be as powerful. But with that being said, Josh, let's say that they actually did achieve this power, even if they weren't as strong as those characters. What difference do you think that this would even make? Do you think that they would eliminate way more people? Do you think Universe 6 would have a better chance if they had two fusions on their side instead of just one? And if so, do you think that maybe Jiren would step in even sooner and go full power even sooner to kind of take them out?
I mean, sure, it would definitely be advantageous to have them, and they would certainly eliminate pretty much everyone out there in the competition, right? Aside from Kefla, who would obviously be on their team anyways. And, you know, anyone on their team, their only trouble in my mind would be Vegeta, Goku, and Jiren, really. And I guess, you know, God Instructor Topo, and that would really be it. But in the end, I mean, they would still lose. It wouldn't really make much of a difference in the long run, really, would it?
No, and, you know, when you really think about it, even though these characters fusing together would definitely give them a big boost, you know, just because of how powerful Jiren was presented as being, and because of how strong and advantageous the ability of Ultra Instinct was described as being for Goku, you know, everything that tournament was built up essentially for it to come down between these fighters, and mostly with Universe 7, because if we look at the tournament itself, Universe 7 was kind of lopsided in their favor the entire fight, to where eventually it was like 3+ people against just Jiren at the end, and they only really ended up winning in the end, as opposed to it being a draw because 17 was still standing in the ring. So even if these characters somehow became as powerful as the most powerful fighters, I'm assuming they would still get taken out in the end, and 17 or somebody would still be left standing, and they would lose nonetheless. So with that being said, I think we both agree that while it would be a significant increase in power, and it might have led to characters like Gohan and Piccolo being eliminated before they eventually were in the original story, then nonetheless these characters would still ultimately fall short of the mega power beyond the gods of destruction that we see during the final fight between Goku and Jiren, and I'm assuming that fight would still happen nonetheless. But of course, this is just our opinions, so let us know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Do you think that they would become as powerful as we said, or perhaps do you think that they'd be even weaker? Maybe you're going to say that we were highballing all these characters and Gohan is barely even Super Saiyan 2 level. I know that there's some people out there who still think that, so let us know down below. Of course, make sure to check out Dragon Ball Nation, and if you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications so you can see all of my videos right away when they come out. And make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.